You bought the plants, you dug the holes, you watered them like you were supposed to, at least for the first week, and then life got in the way. And when you came back out 3 weeks later, half of them were crispy, and the other half were just sort of sitting there looking at you like they'd already given up. That happened to me more times than I want to count, and every single time I convinced myself the problem was me. That I didn't have the time, or the knowledge, or whatever mysterious green thumb quality the people on the covers of garden magazines seem to have been born with. The real problem had nothing to do with any of that. It had everything to do with timing and plant selection, and nobody in the garden center has any financial incentive to explain either of those things to you, because the more plants you kill, the more plants you buy. Here's what I know now. May is different from April. Not better, not worse, different. The soil is warmer, the days are longer. A specific group of perennials that would have sat sulking in April soil wake up fast when the ground hits that late spring temperature sweet spot, establish their roots before summer heat locks in, and spend the rest of the season spreading, blooming, and multiplying while you do essentially nothing. 13 plants. That's what this list is. Not the same 13 you've seen on every other gardening channel. And I'm going to tell you right now, number 10 on this list is one that took me completely by surprise the first time I grew it, and I've been growing perennials for years. The way it handles drought and shade simultaneously, while still producing color that stops people mid-walk. Most gardeners have no idea this plant exists, and by the time we get there, you'll understand exactly why I saved it for the second half of this video. But we need to start at the beginning, because before I give you the list, I want to know something about where you're starting from. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what state you're gardening in and the one spot in your yard that has beaten every plant you've ever tried to grow there. A shady corner under a big tree, a dry slope that turns to concrete in July, a stretch along the fence that gets beat by afternoon sun. Whatever it is, tell me, because I guarantee at least 4 plants on this list were built specifically for that problem, and knowing where you are helps me make better videos for you every single week. May planting works for a reason that has nothing to do with the calendar and everything to do with soil biology. Across most of the continental United States, soil temperatures in May sit between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The precise range where perennial root systems activate fastest, generate the most root mass in the shortest time, and develop the structural anchoring they need to survive their first summer with minimal help from you. You plant in that window and your roots have 4 to 6 weeks to get established before peak heat arrives. You plant in late June or July, same plant, same soil, same garden. And those roots are trying to get established while simultaneously coping with heat stress, moisture loss, and the full metabolic demand of a plant that's already trying to bloom above ground. The establishment fails or crawls. The plant survives but never really takes off that first year. First-year establishment determines everything about long-term performance, spread rate, and bloom quality for the life of that plant. May is not a preference. It is a biological opening. Let's get into the list. The first plant most people never think to reach for is the one that solves the problem they complain about the most. Threadleaf Coreopsis, Coreopsis verticillata, specifically the cultivar Zagreb, handles heat and drought with a stubbornness that borders on shocking. We're talking about a plant that thrives in conditions that would leave most flowering perennials wilted by noon. It forms a dense, fine-textured mound of feathery foliage, covered from early summer through fall in bright golden yellow flowers that are small, daisy-shaped, and so numerous they essentially hide the leaves underneath. The bloom season is one of the longest of any perennial available to American gardeners, often 4 full months without intervention. Zagreb specifically stays compact, around 12 to 18 inches tall and wide, which makes it ideal for border fronts, pathway edges, and containers. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, it spreads steadily through rhizomes underground, expanding the clump every season, and it self-seeds lightly, dropping new plants around the edges of the mother clump without ever becoming aggressive or invasive. Here's the detail that most videos skip completely. Threadleaf Coreopsis actually performs worse in rich, heavily amended soil. More fertility makes it floppy, prone to leaning, and less floriferous. Your lean, sandy, sun-baked spot that you've been fighting with all season, Brian. That is Zagreb's ideal home. Poor soil, full sun, and occasional deep watering during the hottest weeks is all this plant needs to bloom from June through October. Divide it every 3 to 4 years when the center starts thinning out, and each division you dig is a fully blooming plant worth $10 at any nursery. 1 plant becomes 5. 5 becomes 25. That math runs in your favor every single time. What comes next on this list is going to solve a specific problem that a lot of gardeners in zones 4 through 8 have been fighting silently: the gap. The mid to late summer gap when spring bloomers are finished and fall plants haven't started. And your garden looks like it's already winding down in August when you've still got 2 months of outdoor living ahead of you. Agastache, specifically the cultivar Blue Fortune, Agastache funiculum, fills that gap with tall, upright spikes of lavender blue flowers from midsummer through September, sometimes into early October, depending on your zone. It grows 18 to 36 inches tall with aromatic, mint-scented foliage that deer and rabbits walk right past without a second look. The scent is what repels them, and it's strong enough that even heavily browsed gardens see almost no deer pressure on this plant. Pollinators are a completely different story. Bees work those flower spikes constantly from the moment they open, and hummingbirds visit regularly throughout the bloom season. Blue Fortune is sterile, which means it puts all of its energy into producing flowers rather than seeds, and the result is a bloom period that runs dramatically longer than seed-producing varieties. Hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. It handles heat surprisingly well for a plant with such a refined look, and once established, it tolerates moderate drought without the flower production dropping significantly. After the first hard frost kills the stems, cut them back to the crown and leave them alone. New growth emerges reliably in spring. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring before the new growth gets more than a few inches tall. Now here's one that almost nobody plants in sufficient numbers, and that is a genuine mistake because when you plant this one right, meaning in mass, it changes what your garden looks like from the street entirely. Nepeta regmosa, Walker's Low Catmint, forms cascading mounds of silvery gray aromatic foliage covered in lavender blue flowers from late spring through midsummer. The mounding habit is relaxed and flowing. It softens hard edges along pathways and borders in a way that looks effortlessly designed without any effort from you. Cut it back hard by about half after the first flush ends in June or July, and within 3 weeks you get a second flush of bloom that carries through late summer. 2 full bloom seasons from 1 plant in 1 year. No extra cost, no extra planting, just 1 cut with a pair of hedge shears. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Drought tolerant once established. Deer avoid it completely. The aromatic oils are strong enough to deter them at the approach stage before they ever taste it. Unlike spray repellents that wash off in the first rain, this plant is the repellent and it is always on. Pair it with roses, with ornamental grasses, with coneflowers. It ties almost anything together visually and makes the planting look intentional in a way that takes real design skill to achieve with other plants. The bees love it. Genuinely love it. On a warm afternoon in June when Walker's Low is in full bloom, you will hear your garden before you see it. The 4th plant on this list is one with a reputation that has kept it out of a lot of home gardens, and I want to address that directly because the reputation is mostly undeserved. Monarda didyma, bee balm, gets flagged for powdery mildew, and the original species varieties did have that problem badly. But the modern mildew-resistant cultivars, Jacob Klein for deep red, raspberry wine for rich pink, both bred specifically to address this issue, perform beautifully across most American growing zones with almost no mildew pressure when given adequate air circulation. What bee balm brings to a May planting that almost nothing else can match is a combination of visual impact, wildlife value, and functional use that is genuinely rare in a single plant. The flowers are tubular and spiky unlike anything else in the garden in shades of red, pink, purple, and white. Hummingbirds are drawn to them with an intensity that will stop you mid-conversation. Monarch butterflies, tiger swallowtails, and bumblebees work the flowers constantly throughout the bloom season, hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. It spreads through underground rhizomes and can fill a significant area within 2 to 3 seasons. Divide it every 2 to 3 years to keep it contained and performing at peak. Here's the thing most people don't know. The leaves of bee balm are in the mint family and brew into a tea with a bergamot character that is strikingly similar to Earl Grey. You are growing a wildlife garden and a kitchen herb simultaneously. Plant Jacob Klein or raspberry wine this May, and by late July you will understand exactly why gardeners who discover this plant rarely go back to a yard without it. The next 4 plants shift the territory we're working with, because the first 4 are all sun lovers, and a lot of the spots in American yards that need help the most are the ones that don't get full sun. Number 5 addresses that directly. Astilbe, specifically Astilbe X RNC, produces feathery plumes of flowers in white, pink, red, lavender, and coral that rise above deeply cut, glossy foliage in a way that looks genuinely dramatic. People see Astilbe in bloom and assume it must be difficult because the flowers look like something from a professional florist arrangement. It is not difficult. What it needs is consistent moisture and shade, and in return it delivers bloom from early through late summer depending on the variety you choose. Plant a mix of early, mid-season, and late varieties, and you can have color in a shaded area for 3 full months. Fanal for deep red, Bridal Veil for pure white, Amethyst for lavender purple. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Unlike most plants on this list, Astilbe does not tolerate drought. It genuinely needs reliable moisture, which makes it perfect for low spots, north-facing beds, and areas near downspouts where moisture accumulates and other plants rot. The detail most gardening content skips. Leave the dried seed heads standing through fall and winter. They transition to a warm russet brown that provides genuine structure and visual interest in the off-season. And they add a texture to the winter garden that is almost impossible to achieve with any other herbaceous perennial. Birds may forage in them, and the dried plumes cut beautifully for indoor arrangements in November and December when almost nothing else in a northern garden is giving you anything to work with. Number 6 is one of those plants where the gap between how widely known it is and how widely grown it is makes no sense until you understand that garden centers don't always stock what's best. They stock what's easiest to display and sell in a 4-inch pot under fluorescent lights. Baptisia australis false indigo is one of the most spectacular spring-blooming perennials in North America and one of the most long-lived. It produces tall, lupine-like spikes of deep cobalt blue-purple flowers in late spring from a mound of blue-green foliage that stays attractive and structural all season long. After bloom, it develops inflated charcoal black seed pods that rattle when shaken and are genuinely beautiful in dried arrangements. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. This is where I need to be completely straight with you about 2 things. First, Baptisia has a deep taproot and does not want to be moved. Choose where you plant it carefully, because transplanting a mature Baptisia is genuinely difficult and often kills the plant. Plant it once in the right spot and leave it there. Second, it is slow to establish. The first year it may look modest. The second year, it starts to show you what it's capable of. By year 3, a mature Baptisia clump can be 3 to 4 feet tall and equally wide, and it will stay there, looking spectacular, for 20 to 30 years without being replaced. There are Baptisia plants growing in American gardens right now that were planted by people's grandparents. It also fixes nitrogen. Like other legumes, it pulls nitrogen from the air and deposits it in the root zone, actively improving the soil around it while it grows. You are not just adding a plant. You are improving your garden soil biology for every other plant nearby. Right now, if you've been watching this channel for a while and you're not subscribed yet, I want to explain something that the YouTube algorithm does that most people don't fully understand. When you're not subscribed, the platform doesn't reliably put new videos from a channel you've watched into your feed. It tests them inconsistently based on your engagement patterns, which means the next video, and I'm already working on one that goes deep into perennials specifically for hot, dry climates in zones 7, 8, and 9 with plants that most gardening channels never cover, may simply not reach you. Subscribing takes 3 seconds and it changes how the algorithm routes this content to you permanently. Hit that button now and turn the bell on, and the next video finds you instead of you having to go looking. Number 7 is for everyone who has a sunny, dry border that looks great in spring and then fades to nothing by July. Gaillardia X grandiflora, blanket flower. is a native-origin perennial that blooms in warm, fiery tones of red, orange, and yellow from early summer through fall, one of the longest bloom seasons of any sun perennial available to American gardeners. The flowers are bold, 2 to 3 inches across, with a daisy form and a color saturation that photographs brilliantly and looks stunning in mass plantings. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, it thrives in poor, sandy, well-drained soil and actually declines in quality with heavy fertilization or poorly drained clay. This is a plant for your worst sunny soil, not your best. Deadhead regularly through summer to keep the bloom going continuously, and cut the whole plant back by about 1/3 in midsummer to encourage a strong late-season flush. Arizona Sun and Goblin are 2 cultivars with proven longevity and compact form that hold up well in containers as well as borders. Divide every 2 to 3 years. Gaillardia is short-lived if left undivided, but divided regularly it stays vigorous and productive for many years. Number 8 produces something that most people in this country pay serious money to replicate artificially, and you can grow it on your porch in a 3-gallon container for under $15. Lavandula angustifolia, English lavender, blooms in those iconic purple spikes from late spring through midsummer, and the fragrance it releases is one of the most recognizable scents in the natural world. What most gardening content doesn't say clearly enough: lavender in containers outperforms lavender in the ground in a lot of American climates, specifically because containers give you complete control over the one thing lavender cannot tolerate, which is wet roots. The mix matters. 50% quality potting soil, 50% coarse perlite, drainage holes that actually drain. In that setup, lavender in a container is nearly bulletproof. Hid coat for deep purple compact form, hardy to zone 5. Phenomenal for heat and humidity tolerance across zones 5 through 9, one of the best cultivars developed specifically for American growing conditions in the last decade. Never fertilize it, not once. Rich soil produces weak, soft, floppy growth and kills the essential oil concentration that creates both the fragrance and the natural insect-repelling properties. Neglect is the correct technique. Place it on your patio. On a warm evening, brush the foliage as you walk past. The oils release immediately, and you have a fragrant, mosquito-deterring space that costs less than a bottle of citronella candles that will be gone by August. We're past the halfway point, and what comes next is where this list gets genuinely interesting. Because the plants so far are excellent, I mean that every one of them earns its place. But the next 5 include 2 that most gardeners have never seriously considered, and one that I mentioned at the beginning of this video as the one that surprised me most. We're getting close to that one. Stay with me. Number 9 is Penstemon digitalis, beard tongue. And if you garden in zones 3 through 8, and you've never grown this Native American perennial, I want you to understand what you've been missing. It produces tall, elegant spikes of tubular white flowers with a faint pink blush in late spring and early summer, growing 2 to 3 feet tall above low, attractive basal foliage that stays clean and green all season. The Husker Red cultivar adds a dramatic burgundy red foliage tone that makes it ornamentally interesting from the moment it breaks dormancy in spring. It handles poor soil, clay, rocky ground, and moderate drought with almost no complaint once established. Hummingbirds visit the flowers intensely throughout bloom season. It self-seeds reliably, dropping new plants around the parent clump every season that you can transplant or leave to naturalize. And here is what makes Penstemon genuinely unusual in the world of perennials. It is one of the few plants native to North American prairies that performs beautifully in both wild, naturalized settings and formal garden borders without looking out of place in either. It bridges the gap between the pollinator garden aesthetic and the tidy residential border aesthetic in a way that almost nothing else manages. Cut it back by about 1/3 after the bloom flush ends in June, and it often produces a modest second flush of flowers in late summer. Not as heavy as the first, but worth having. Number 10. This is the one. I promised you at the start of this video that one plant on this list would surprise you, and I meant that. Tricertis hirta, the toad lily, is one of the most bizarre, most beautiful, most completely unexpected flowering perennials you can grow in a shaded American garden. And the fact that it is not on every gardening channel's list of must-have plants is something I genuinely cannot explain, except that it's slow to catch on. And garden centers often don't stock it because it doesn't look dramatic in a 4-inch display pot. It does not look like anything else in the garden. The flowers are small, orchid-like, spotted in purple and white on arching stems, blooming in late summer and fall, specifically August through October, when almost everything else in a shade garden has either finished or is on its way out. It is the only perennial I know of that produces orchid-like flowers reliably in full to partial shade in late season without requiring any specialized soil or expertise. Hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. It grows 12 to 30 inches tall, depending on the variety. Miyazaki is the most widely available cultivar and produces arching stems of white flowers heavily spotted with purple that look genuinely otherworldly when you encounter them in early September. It spreads slowly through rhizomes, never aggressively, filling in its area over 3 to 4 seasons at a rate that is completely manageable. Consistent moisture and shade. That's the entire care requirement. No deadheading needed. No staking, no dividing for the first several years. When you find it at a specialty nursery, and you will need a specialty nursery because big box stores rarely carry it, buy multiple plants, plant them in groups. The effect in late summer of a clump of toad lily in full bloom in a shaded corner is one of those garden moments that people stop mid-conversation to look at. And when they ask what it is and you tell them, they will not believe you planted it yourself. I want to know if any of you have already grown toad lily. Drop it in the comments. Tell me what variety and how long you've been growing it, because I've been hearing from gardeners who've had it for 15 years and still feel like they discovered a secret every time it blooms. And if you tried something in your shade garden that just completely failed, tell me that too. Tell me what you planted, what zone you're in, what happened, because those comments directly shape what I cover next. Number 11 is Rudbeckia triloba, 3-lobed coneflower, sometimes called brown-eyed Susan. And it is substantially different from the Rudbeckia fulgida goldstorm that appears on most perennial lists. Different enough that I want to be specific about why it belongs here separately. Where goldstorm is a tight, well-behaved clump, Rudbeckia triloba is a wildly productive, aggressively self-seeding, tall and airy plant that produces hundreds of small golden yellow flowers on branching stems from midsummer through hard frost. Hundreds. The plant grows 3 to 5 feet tall with a loose, naturalistic habit that looks spectacular in meadow-style plantings, in the back of a border, or mass-planted along a fence line. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8. Individual plants are technically biennials or short-lived perennials, but they self-seed so reliably and so prolifically that the colony never disappears. You always have plants in their first and second year simultaneously, which means continuous bloom year after year without ever replanting. Leave the seed heads standing through winter, and goldfinches will work them from October through February. The Wildlife Federation specifically identifies Rudbeckia triloba as one of the highest value plants you can grow for native bird species during the winter months. It tolerates poor soil, clay, and moderate drought. It does not want to be fussed over. Plant it once in a sunny spot where it has room to spread and self-seed, and then leave it alone. The return on that one decision runs for years. Number 12 is for the gardener who has a wet spot. Not poorly drained clay, an actually wet spot. A low area where water collects after rain, a spot along a downspout or at the base of a slope where the soil stays consistently moist. Most perennials hate this. Lobelia cardinalis, cardinal flower, loves it. It produces tall, striking spikes of brilliant scarlet red flowers in late summer, grows 2 to 4 feet tall, and is one of the most effective hummingbird attractors of any plant native to North America. The tubular shape of the flowers is essentially precision engineered for hummingbird feeding. And in late summer, when most other nectar sources are winding down, hummingbirds depend on cardinal flower heavily before migration. Hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9, it self-seeds reliably in moist soil. Each rosette of foliage at the base represents next year's plant. and you can transplant these rosettes in early spring to expand the colony wherever you have appropriate conditions. The bloom is intense, only a few weeks at peak, but the impact during those weeks is something photographs don't fully capture. The red is not soft or subtle. It is vivid, saturated, and visible from a significant distance. If you have a wet spot that has beaten everything you've tried, this is your plant, not despite the moisture. Because of it. 13. The final plant on this list is the one that does something none of the others can. It extends your garden's season in both directions simultaneously. Helleborus orientalis, Lenten rose, blooms in late winter and early spring, often February through April, depending on your zone, when nothing else in your garden is showing color. The flowers are nodding, face downward, and come in white, cream, pale yellow, pink, deep plum, burgundy, and near black, with spotted interiors that you only see when you tilt the flower up toward you, which is like opening a small, beautiful surprise. The foliage is evergreen, thick, deeply divided, and stays attractive year-round, providing structure and ground cover in a shaded area through all 4 seasons. Hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9, deer avoid it completely. The entire plant contains compounds that make it unpalatable to wildlife, which is an extraordinary advantage in gardens where deer pressure has made growing almost anything feel impossible. It tolerates dry shade once established, a condition that defeats most shade perennials. It self-seeds prolifically, and the seedlings are variable, not identical to the parent, which means every season brings genuinely new combinations of color and spotting you didn't plan for. Hellebore enthusiasts collect named varieties the way rose people collect roses. Once you grow one, you will grow more. That's not a sales pitch. It's just what happens. Here's how to think about all 13 of these plants together, because a list only becomes a garden when you know how to place it. If your problem is shade, deep shade, dry shade under trees, the spots that have beaten you most, your answer is astilbe for moist shade, toad lily for late season shade color, cardinal flower for wet shaded areas, and hellebore for dry shade year-round, including winter. Those 4 plants in combination can turn a problem shade area into one of the most interesting parts of your entire yard. If your problem is sun and drought, hot, dry, poor soil, slopes that bake in afternoon light, Threadleaf Coreopsis, Gaillardia, catmint, and lavender are your 4. All of them want poor soil. All of them want infrequent water. All of them will give you months of bloom in conditions that would stress most plants into dormancy. If your problem is deer, and if you're in a zone where deer are a constant presence, you know exactly how discouraging it is to plant something beautiful and find it eaten by morning, catmint, lavender, agastache, penstemon, baptisia, and hellebore are all deer-resistant at a level that doesn't require luck. The deer problem is largely a plant selection problem. If your problem is budget, if you want maximum garden coverage for minimum ongoing cost, think about which plants on this list self-seed most reliably. Rudbeckia triloba, baptisia, penstemon, hellebore, and cardinal flower will all reproduce themselves at no cost to you, giving you new plants every season that you can transplant, share with neighbors, or use to expand your beds. One season's investment becomes a 5-year supply. There are 3 things about May planting that most gardening content never says directly, and they are worth saying clearly. The first is about watering during establishment. The number 1 reason May-planted perennials fail by July is not heat, it's inconsistent watering during the first 4 to 6 weeks, specifically. After those 6 weeks, most of these plants have developed enough root structure to handle periods of dry weather. Before that 6-week mark, letting the soil dry out completely between waterings puts the root system under stress that compromises long-term performance. Water deeply and less frequently. This encourages roots to go down looking for moisture, which builds the drought tolerance these plants are known for, rather than lightly and frequently, which keeps the roots shallow. The second thing is about mulch. 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch applied around newly planted perennials. At planting time, reduces soil moisture loss by up to 50% and moderates soil temperature fluctuations that stress establishing root systems. This is not decorative, it is functional, and it directly affects how quickly these plants get established and how well they perform their first summer. Keep the mulch pulled back an inch from the crown of each plant to prevent crown rot. The third thing is about dividing, and it's one that experienced gardeners know, but beginners almost universally miss. The time to divide a perennial is not when it looks bad. It is when it looks almost too good, when the clump is dense, vigorous, and full. If you wait until the center dies out and the plant is visibly declining, you've waited too long and the divisions will be weaker. Divide while the plant is at its best every 3 to 4 years. And you bank free plants before the decline ever starts. If you've watched this entire video and you're still not subscribed, I want to say something to you that has nothing to do with the algorithm and everything to do with what this channel is actually trying to do. The information in this video, the specific cultivar names, the zone data, the things most garden centers don't explain, took real time to put together, and there is more of it, going deeper every single week. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning of this video are already getting next week's video recommended to them automatically. The ones who subscribed in the middle are too. If you're watching right now and you haven't hit that button yet, you're making this harder for yourself than it needs to be. This channel exists to give you the real information, not the watered-down version, not the vague advice designed to make you buy more products, and it is completely free. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and it comes to you. One last thing before you go. I want you to tell me something specific in the comments, not which plant you liked best. Tell me the name of one plant you grew that died, any plant, any year, and tell me what state you're in and what you think went wrong. Because I've been reading comments from this community for a long time, and the patterns in those failures are exactly what drives the content I build next. Your story might be the thing that determines the next video's topic, so drop it below. One plant, one state. What you think happened. I read every single one, now go dig something up.